10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, Episode 39. Hey everybody, and welcome back. The 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast is back. My name is Nick Manella, and I'll be your host for all these 10-minute episodes. So I want to let you guys know that I found myself with a little bit more time recently. So I decided to bring the podcast back. A lot of you have been super cool and reached out to me and really expressed that the podcast was very beneficial for you. So I want to make sure that I bring it back and give you more value and give you a new jazz lesson every single week. So I'm going to do my best to put these out every week, but, if I get busy and I miss a week here and there, please don't hold it against me. But I want to continue putting out this content because I know how hard learning to be a jazz musician can become, and I would really like to help everybody out there in my own small way to become a better jazz musician. All right, so let's get on with today's episode. So today we're going to be talking about the diminished chord, and this is going to be part one of a two-part series. This week, we're going to focus on the actual diminished chord. Next week, we're going to start talking about the diminished scale. So let's get into the chord. The first thing I want to talk to you about is how do we actually form a diminished chord, and what's the difference from, let's say, a half diminished chord or a minor chord or something like that. So the diminished chord is like one of the darkest chords that we can have in music. Now, in classical music, where you're dealing with mostly triads, a diminished is simply 1, flat 3, flat 5. Okay, but in jazz, as you probably know, we deal with seventh chords more often than not. So we need to add a seventh to that. And here's where the sort of tough part, if you're brand new to this, starts to come in. So the way that we form a diminished seventh chord is 1, flat 3, flat 5, double flat 7. Now, the double flat 7 is the weird part. I mean, it's not very often that we hear that we have to double flat a chord tone. But let's think about that for a second. So let's take C, because it's always the easiest chord to work from. And let's figure out what our four chord tones are. So we have C, which is 1. We have E flat, which is flat 3. We have G flat, which is flat 5. And our double flat 7 would technically be B double flat. But for all intents and purposes, we want to make this as easy as possible on ourselves. So let's just call it A. And you're going to see there's another reason for that later in this episode. But let's just call it A. So now we have C, E flat, G flat, and A. So this is a little bit different than if you know anything about half diminished chords or minor 7 flat 5 chords. Those are 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. So the difference is, and the thing that makes it a little bit darker than a half diminished chord, is that we are double flatting the 7, okay? So the very first thing that I want to do is I want to play these chord tones for you so that you can hear the sound of them and maybe you can learn to identify a diminished chord. So here's what the chord tones sound like. So you can hear that that's a pretty dark, sounding chord, because basically we're flatting everything in the chord and we're even double flatting some of the notes. So it's a great, great chord if you want that dark sound, and we do see it a lot. And here's one of the reasons that I'm doing this episode for you guys is that I find a lot of young and inexperienced improvisers, they don't know what to do over a diminished chord. When they get there, it's like hitting a roadblock and you don't actually know what to do over it. So I wanted to enlighten you guys a little bit and show you that it's actually not that complicated. All right, so here's something else we want to talk about for this week. The beautiful thing about our diminished chord tones is they are actually just a stack of minor thirds. So if you think about it, C to E flat is a minor third, E flat to G flat is a minor third, and G flat to A is also a minor third. So they're, just a stack of the same interval, which works out to be that there are actually only 3 unique diminished chords. So think about this for a second. What is an E flat diminished chord? Well, let's think about that for a second. So 1 would be E flat, flat 3 would be G flat 5 would be A, and double flat 7 would be C. So all that is the exact same chord that we just played, but starting on an E flat. And that's one of the beautiful things about the diminished chord, is that really you only need to work on 3 of them. All right. So by simply playing a staggered arpeggio exercise, I can work on my C diminished chord, my E flat diminished chord, my G flat diminished chord, and my A diminished chord all at the same time. So this is going to be exercise number 2 on your worksheet for this week. Check it out. I'm going to actually play through 4 keys of diminished chords all in one exercise. Here we go. So that's kind of nice, isn't it? I mean, in something like jazz where everything is just so difficult, sometimes it's kind of nice when we realize that, we can work on one thing, and by working on that one thing, we're actually working on multiple things. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's really nice. So if you think about this, you really only need to work on it in 3 keys. You need to work on it in C, you need to work on it in D flat, and you need to work on it in D. And then you're right back at E flat, which is the exact same key as C. So when it comes to chord tones, a little bit easier. You're going to see similarities in the scale, but obviously the scale is a little bit more difficult to grasp. And also you might want to think about that in every single key. So while we have the chance, let's work on these 3 sets of chord tones. And what you're going to see in your worksheet this week is I've actually written out a couple of different exercises in all 3 of the keys, and you can identify them with all of the different diminished chords that go along with those keys and the way that they overlap. Okay, so one place to practice this, which is a perfect place to get this sort of underneath your fingers and get it sounding good, so that whenever you see a diminished chord in a tune, you kind of have something to play, is over the blues. Our old friend, the blues. We work on so many of these concepts over the blues, it's just crazy. But when we start getting a little bit more advanced in the blues, in bar number 6, we put a sharp 4 diminished chord. So you'll notice your last little exercise in this week's sheet is going to be a blues in the key of B flat. And what we're really going to be shooting for is bar 6. All right, we're really going to be shooting for playing a diminished arpeggio over that diminished chord in bar 6. So I'm going to finish up this week by playing a couple of choruses over the blues. And what I really want you to listen to while I'm playing is, what am I doing over bar 6? You should really be able to hear that diminished chord happening. And I'm only going to play chord tones. So really zero in your ears when you get to bar 6. All right. So here's a little bit of stuff over the blues to finish up with this episode. So could you hear the diminished chord? That's what I really want you to focus on this, is actually hearing that diminished chord in bar 6 and just hearing that I'm playing arpeggios over it. And once you start to feel kind of comfortable with these exercises and you've practiced them in all 3 keys, start doing some stuff with the blues. The beauty of that iReal Pro app is that you can put the blues in any key, and therefore you can get practice over the diminished chord in every single key. All right. So hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, make sure you send me an email at 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. Definitely open to any questions, maybe suggestions for the next episode. That would be awesome. Remember, if you have a chance, please go to 10minutejazzlesson.com. Check out everything that we have there. That is also where you'll find the exercise for this week. Go to the episode for this week and you will find the PDF right in there that you can download. Also, we would love it if you could support us a little bit by making a monthly donation. And we also have a store at the website with lots of really, really cool stuff. Foundational exercises for the improviser. We've got a couple of transcription packs, things of that nature. Those really help us to keep the show going. All right, everybody, I will see you next week and we will explore the diminished scale on the next episode. Have a great week, everybody. I'm so happy to be back, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.